When I was little, my father was famous. He was the greatest samurai in the empire. He cut off the heads of 131.
Hey everybody, Jerry Williams, aka Greater Sapien here. Thanks for stopping by. So there's not going to be a lot of me talking in this video, as I'm going to just let the candidates speak for themselves. I'm just here for the beginning, middle, and I have an evaluation at the end. A little over a week ago, Trump took part in a town hall held by Univision, and he was asked a question by a gentleman who asked Trump to win back his vote by addressing his concerns. Little did I know that just 1 week prior, Kamala Harris was asked a question by that very same man. I find that interesting. So let's look at the two exchanges, and I'll give you my thoughts. Now, these are politicians. They can be wordy. So I'll have a countdown timer up in the corner if you want to listen at 2x.
Buenas noches, señor Trump. Good evening, Mr. Trump. Okay. I am a Republican, no longer registered, though. I want to give you the opportunity to try to win back my vote. Okay. Your, I'd say, action and maybe inaction during your presidency and the last few years sort of, was a little disturbing to me. What happened during January 6th and the fact that, you waited so long to take action while your supporters were attacking the Capitol. Coronavirus, I thought the public was misled during coronavirus, and that many more lives could have been saved if we would have been informed better. And also people in your administration who don't support you. I'm curious how people so close to you and your administration no longer want to support you, so why would I want to support you? If you would answer these questions for me, I would really appreciate it and give you the opportunity. There's, your own vice president doesn't want to support you now.
Thank you, Ramiro. So the people that don't support a very small portion. We have a tremendous, about 97% of the people in the administration support me. But because it's me, somebody doesn't support, they get a little publicity. The vice president, I disagree with him on what he did. I totally disagreed with him on what he did. Very importantly, you had hundreds of thousands of people come to Washington. They didn't come because of me. They came because of the election. They thought the election was a rigged election, and that's why they came. Some of those people went down to the Capitol. I said peacefully and patriotically, nothing done wrong at all, nothing done wrong. And action was taken, strong action. Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. There were no guns down there. We didn't have guns. The others had guns, but we didn't have guns. And when I say we, these are people that walked down. This was a tiny percentage of the overall, which nobody sees and nobody shows. But that was a day of love from the standpoint of the millions. It's like hundreds of thousands. It could have been the largest group I've ever spoken before. They asked me to speak. I went and I spoke. And I used the term peacefully and patriotically. If you look at the Democrats, what they say, you look at Maxine Waters and you look at Hillary Clinton and you look at what they say, and they don't put that on. They only put Republicans on. But they couldn't get me because of the fact that I said everything's got to be peaceful and patriotic. And we'll see how it all works out. But I think that we're right now in another election. All I want is honest elections. I'm willing to take any chance. I want honest elections. We need borders and we need honest elections. And if we don't have either of those two things, that's it. We have tremendous loyalty to the Trump administration. Biden, when he lost in Afghanistan, when he looked so bad, that's why Putin went into Ukraine, in my opinion. He looked and he saw he should have fired every general involved in that. There was a disaster. He should have fired a lot of people because he had the most unsuccessful administration in the history of our country. A disaster, acknowledged. I, again, had the best economy we've ever had. I rebuilt our military. I defeated ISIS. I did things that nobody thought. In terms of medical right to try, I got right to try where you could use space age, things that wouldn't be approved for another 5 or 10 years. You were able to use it, and we saved thousands and thousands of lives. But 97% of the people in my administration supported me. When you fire somebody, they say bad things. When I fire a John Bolton or when I fire any of these people, he was terrible. But when I fire people, they go out and say, if I didn't fire people, they wouldn't say it. But you know what? Biden should have fired a lot of people because he had a very unsuccessful administration. And the first thing the person he should have fired is his vice president because she's absolutely terrible. And I'll tell you, she's no way fit, in any way fit, to be the president of the United States. In fact, she turned on him, and they had a coup. They took it over from a president that got 14 million votes. I'm no fan of his, but he got 14 million votes. He won the primary. She was out of the primary. She was the first one to quit, and she left 22 people. She was the first one out. She never made it to Iowa. And then she comes back, and they do a coup. They take it over from him. So that's the way it is. When people don't do their job, I fire them. And if they say bad things about me, that's okay. But overall, look, we're leading in the polls now. We have an election going on right now. I'm doing really well with Hispanics, and we're doing well pretty much with every group. When people don't do a job, I'm sorry, I get rid of them. And if they want to say bad things, I've never fired somebody that said wonderful things. Sometimes they think about it. But when you let somebody go, even for cause, and I only do for cause, they don't generally say great things. But Biden, never think of it, into the worst administration in the history of our country, he never fired one person, and that's disgraceful. And you look at the border has been a disaster. All they had to do is leave my border. I had the safest, most secure border, and people came in legally. I had the safest border in the history of our country. All he had to do is leave our people and leave our policies. I had a remain in Mexico policy, worked out with the Mexican government. The head of Mexico, all of them, they were my friends. They were good. They were great people. It wasn't easy to work it out, but I worked it out. Remain in Mexico. It was an unbelievable success. Remain in Mexico. We check you out, and then we bring you into the country if you check out. Biden didn't do that. He got rid of everything. He had an open border policy where the whole world flowed in. Unfortunately, the world were prison populations. If I were running a country, any country, and I heard that the U.S. had an open border policy, the first thing I do is open up my jails, take all of my prisoners, and let them out, murderers and everyone else. And that's essentially what they did, and it's a shame. So we had the most successful country we've ever had, and I hope someday maybe we'll get your vote. Sounds like maybe I won't, but that's okay, too. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Ramiro.
Yeah, I think Trump could tell at the end that this guy wasn't impressed by his answer. Okay, let's watch this man's exchange with Harris that took place a week earlier.
Buenas noches, señor.
Good evening,
Vicepresidente.
Ms. Vice President.
Me pasé toda la noche velando.
I spent the entire night looking at news, tracking the hurricane that was going through my family's house.
Hace 2 semanas pasó.
2 weeks ago, there was another hurricane that came through the same neighborhood.
Están diciendo.
They are saying, or rumors are, that your administration didn't do enough to respond to the last hurricane. What would you specifically do, or your administration do, to help us in the Tampa Bay area or the Central Florida area with this
The
hurricane?
administration didn't do enough in terms of relief for families affected by Helene. What would your administration do differently in the case of Milton?
Well, first of all, thank you for the question, and I hope your family is okay and your home is okay.
Yes, they are, ma'am.
Okay. So there has been a lot of mis and disinformation about what we have been doing over the last 2 weeks and what we are going to do going forward. And I have to stress that this is not a time for people to play politics. You know, I started my career as a prosecutor. And when I worked doing that job of my goal of keeping people safe, I never asked a witness or a victim of crime, are you a Republican, are you a Democrat? The only question I ever asked is, are you okay? And sadly, we have seen over the last 2 weeks since Hurricane Helene and now in the immediate aftermath of Milton, where people are playing political games, suggesting that resources and support is only going to certain people based on a political agenda. And this is just not accurate. I have been working over the course of the last couple of years, not even couple of years, my whole career, but couple of weeks, with people on the ground in Georgia, in North Carolina, in Florida, in the Southeast corridor, Republicans, Democrats, to work in getting relief that is about bringing FEMA resources on the ground, reminding people that they are entitled to relief. Don't listen to anyone who says that you're not entitled. Doing the work. I was just on a secure meeting today with the President, with the Secretary of Defense, with the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, with the head of the Coast Guard, with the General representing NORTHCOM, talking about how the federal, state, and local governments are working together for the benefit of the people on the ground. Another piece of work that I've been doing, it's based on my years of being an attorney general in California, is telling those corporations and those companies that during crisis and emergencies jack up prices, and I've seen it happen before, that we're watching them, and at a moment of desperation for these individuals and families, whether it be to be able to get temporary shelter at a hotel, for gas prices, for even airline tickets, that we'll be watching if they're jacking up prices to make sure there'll be serious consequence. And that's the kind of work I will do going forward. I have spent my career, the vast majority of my career, concerning myself with the safety and well-being of people. And I promise you, and I pledge to you as president, I will continue to do that. You have a right to know that your government and its leaders are putting you first and not themselves.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Interesting. A very different response to Harris's answer than to the answer Trump gave. And I can see why. Kamala Harris began by expressing concern for Gonzalez's family, underscoring her ongoing commitment to the safety and well-being of citizens affected by the hurricane. She focused on empathy and providing reassurance, taking a professional tone while addressing the technical aspects of the administration's hurricane relief efforts. Her response was fact-driven, highlighting coordination with local and federal agencies, the use of FEMA resources, and she mentioned her plan to take protective measures against price gouging. She also took the opportunity to dispel rumors of political favoritism, emphasizing that disaster relief is non-partisan, contrary to rumor. On the other hand, Trump was defensive, spending much of his response addressing criticisms related to his presidency rather than offering reassurances for the future. His answer to Gonzalez's concerns about January 6th was to downplay his role, emphasizing that he encouraged peaceful protest and blaming the media for misrepresentation, calling it a day of love. Basically, telling this man that he didn't see what he saw, which is the very definition of gaslighting. He reframed the events as a reaction to a rigged election, placing himself in the position of victimhood. On the subject of COVID-19, Trump sidestepped Gonzalez's concerns that the public had been misled. Throughout his response, Trump repeatedly attacked his political opponents, positioning himself as a successful leader who was mistreated. Now, Trump took 6 whole minutes only to tell this man that he was wrong. No wonder he was giving Trump this look after a while. This guy knows bullshit when he hears it. Trump wasn't addressing the voters' concerns. He was addressing his own grievances. In contrast, look at his body language during the 3 minutes Harris answered his question. She was answering his question. Oh, she got her talking points in, but she made sure her talking points were in some way connected to his concerns. This is when she won his vote. And this is when Trump failed to get it back.
That's my job! That's what I do! I don't lose! I win! I win! Is there no one on this planet to even challenge me?
Maybe you came by to congratulate me on last night's victory.
Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. There were no guns down there. We didn't have guns. The others had guns, but we didn't have guns.